The signal that changed everything. The medical convoy drifted through the darkness between stars like a wounded animal trying to reach shelter. 7 ships traveled together, their hulls painted white with the universal symbol of mercy. They carried no weapons. They needed none, or so everyone believed. Dr. Mira Voss stood at the observation deck of the lead vessel, the Sanctuary of Dawn. She was not the captain, merely the senior physician, but she felt responsible for every soul aboard these ships. The Valori were a gentle species. Their bodies were slender and tall, covered in soft blue fur that rippled when they felt strong emotions. Their eyes were large and dark, designed for the dim forests of their home world. They had never evolved claws or fangs or armored skin. They had never needed to. The convoy carried 3,000 refugees from a colony world struck by plague. Children, elderly, families torn apart by disease. Mira had worked for 6 days straight treating patients, and exhaustion pulled at her bones like gravity. But she could not sleep. Something felt wrong. The attack came without warning. The first missile struck the engine section of the rearmost ship. Mira watched through the window as the vessel named Hope's Promise broke apart in a silent explosion. Bodies tumbled into the vacuum. She saw them spinning, limbs flailing and then going still. Her mind refused to process what her eyes were seeing. Alarms screamed throughout the Sanctuary of Dawn. Red emergency lights painted everything in the color of blood. Crew members ran past Mira, their voices high with terror. She heard someone shouting about raiders. About the Kreth. The Kreth were everything the Valori were not. Massive, brutal creatures from a high-gravity world, they had evolved as apex predators. Their empire had crumbled centuries ago, but scattered bands of them still roamed the lawless regions of space, taking what they wanted, killing those who resisted. They had no honor. They had no mercy. They had only hunger. Mira ran toward the medical bay. If she was going to die, she would die protecting her patients. The ship shook around her as more weapons fire struck the hull. She fell against a wall, felt something crack in her shoulder, ignored the pain. She kept running. In the communications center, a young officer named Sella was trying to save them all. Her hands moved across the console with desperate speed. Blood ran down her face from a wound on her forehead. A piece of the ceiling had fallen during the first impact and struck her, but she had not stopped working. The distress beacon was their only hope. The Valori had no military. They had no warships patrolling these regions. But the Galactic Council maintained emergency response protocols. If Sella could transmit their location, their species, their situation, someone might come. Someone might help. She entered the coordinates for the nearest patrol station. Her fingers trembled. The ship lurched again and her hands slipped. One number changed. Just one. She did not notice. She hit the transmission button and prayed to every ancestor she could name. The signal punched through subspace, carrying its desperate message across the light years. But it did not travel toward the patrol station. It traveled toward a yellow star surrounded by warning beacons in 47 languages. The beacons all said the same thing. Quarantine zone. Death world. Apex predators. Do not approach under any circumstances. The system was called Sol. The death world was called Earth. And the creatures living there had been waiting 300 years for someone to ask for help. Lieutenant Commander Yuki Tanaka was eating instant noodles at her monitoring station when the signal arrived. She worked the night shift at the Deep Space Listening Post, a lonely assignment that usually involved watching empty screens and fighting boredom. Nothing interesting ever happened at 3 in the morning. Then every alarm in the facility activated simultaneously. Yuki dropped her noodles. The hot broth splashed across her uniform, but she did not notice. Her screens were filled with data. Quantum signatures. Subspace frequencies. Mathematical patterns that could only mean one thing. Someone was out there. Someone was dying. Someone had called Earth for help. She hit the priority alert and watched the chain of command wake up in real time. Within 10 minutes, she was briefing Admiral Kenji Nakamura via secure channel. The Admiral was 73 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. He listened to Yuki's report without interrupting. When she finished, he asked only one question. How far? 22 light years, sir. Near the Vega Transit Corridor. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Yuki could see him thinking, weighing options, calculating risks. Humanity had been searching for alien life since they first looked up at the stars. They had found only ruins and silence. Now finally someone was out there. And that someone was being attacked. Wake the Harbinger, the Admiral said. Yuki felt her blood go cold. Sir? You heard me, Lieutenant Commander. Sound General Quarters for the United Earth ship Harbinger. I want Captain Reyes on the bridge in 30 minutes. The UES Harbinger was not a ship. It was a statement. A promise. A threat made of metal and fire and the accumulated violence of a species that had spent its entire existence fighting for survival. Earth was a death world. Humans evolved alongside predators that could kill them with a single bite. They survived ice ages and plagues and disasters that should have ended them 100 times over. They developed weapons that could destroy entire cities. They learned to wage war with terrible efficiency. And when they finally reached the stars, they built ships that reflected everything they had learned about survival. The Harbinger stretched 3 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was covered in armor so thick that it could survive flying through a star's corona. Its weapon systems included railguns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds, plasma lances that burned at temperatures exceeding those found in stellar cores, missile batteries carrying payloads that could crack planets, and point defense systems so sophisticated that they could track and destroy incoming threats measured in millimeters. The ship carried a crew of 1,200. Every one of them was a volunteer. Every one of them had trained for years in conditions that would kill members of most other species. They could function in high gravity, low gravity, no gravity. They could survive vacuum exposure for limited periods. They could fight in temperatures that ranged from freezing to boiling. They were the finest warriors humanity had ever produced, and they had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. Captain Diana Reyes received the call while running her morning combat drill. She was 44 years old, with dark hair cut short and a scar across her jaw from a training accident that she had never bothered to have removed. Her crew called her the Iron Lady, though never to her face. She listened to the briefing, asked 3 questions and made her decision in under a minute. Battle stations, she announced over the ship-wide intercom. All hands prepare for emergency faster-than-light jump. We have civilians dying out there and we are going to save them. The Harbinger's engines came online with a sound like thunder. Power flooded through systems that had been designed to wage war against anything the universe could produce. The crew moved to their stations with practiced efficiency. No one spoke. No one needed to. On Earth, news networks interrupted their programming to announce that first contact with alien life had been confirmed. In homes and streets and public spaces around the world, 8 billion humans watched their warship prepare to jump into the unknown. Some prayed. Some cheered. Some simply stared in wonder. The countdown reached 0. The UES Harbinger tore a hole in spacetime and vanished in a flash of exotic radiation. It would travel for 2 weeks through dimensions that human mathematics could barely describe. And when it arrived, the galaxy would learn something important about the death world species called humanity. They answered calls for help. They came heavily armed. And they were very, very good at violence. The wrath of the Deathworlders. Commander Thrax of the Kreth Raider fleet was enjoying himself. The attack had gone perfectly. 7 medical ships, all unarmed, all helpless. His warriors had disabled 4 vessels and captured 3, including the largest one carrying the most valuable cargo. The other 3 ships had been destroyed, but that was acceptable. Dead refugees were worthless, but living ones could be sold. He walked through the corridors of the captured Sanctuary of Dawn, stepping over bodies and debris. His massive frame barely fit through the doorways designed for the smaller Valori. Blood stained his claws. He had killed several of them personally during the boarding action. They had not even tried to fight back. Weak, Thrax growled to his second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Cross. This species is pathetically weak. How do they survive? They don't fight, Cross replied. They think peace is strength. They think mercy protects them. Both Kreth laughed. It was a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. In the medical bay, Dr. Mira Voss huddled with the surviving crew and patients. Nearly 200 Valori had been herded into the confined space. Children cried softly, their faces pressed against their parents' fur. The elderly sat in stunned silence. The injured moaned with pain that no one could treat. Mira had tried to resist. She had thrown herself at one of the raiders when they grabbed a young nurse. The Kreth had swatted her aside like an insect. Her arm was broken now, hanging useless at her side. But she was still alive. That meant she still had responsibility. Stay calm, she whispered to those around her. Stay together. Someone will come. Someone will help us. She did not believe her own words. The Valori had no military. The Galactic Council was weeks away. No one was coming. Then the ship shook. It was different from the weapons fire earlier. This was something massive dropping out of faster-than-light travel nearby. Very nearby. Close enough that the gravity distortion rattled the hull plating. Thrax felt it on the bridge. His navigational officer was already pulling up sensor data. What he saw made his blood go cold. Commander. His voice trembled. There's a ship. I can see that. Thrax studied the readings with growing unease. The vessel was enormous, 3 times larger than any warship he had ever encountered. Its energy signature was off every scale their sensors could measure. And it had appeared out of nowhere, positioning itself between his fleet and open space, blocking their escape. Hail them, Thrax commanded. Find out who they are. The communications officer worked frantically. No response on council frequencies. No response on any standard channel. Wait, getting something. It's broadcasting in our battle tongue. Thrax's eyes narrowed. The Kreth battle tongue was a classified military language, used only between warriors during combat. How did anyone outside his species know it? Play the message. The voice that filled the bridge was unlike anything Thrax had heard. It spoke his language perfectly, but with an accent that seemed to come from somewhere very far away. The tone was calm, controlled, absolutely certain. This is Captain Diana Reyes of the United Earthship Harbinger. You have attacked civilian vessels and taken prisoners. You will release all hostages immediately. You will power down your weapons. You will surrender unconditionally. You have 3 minutes to comply. This is your only warning. Silence fell across the bridge. Thrax's officers looked at him, waiting for orders. He could see fear in their eyes. They had seen the sensor readings. They knew what they were facing. But Thrax had not become a raider commander by surrendering to threats. All ships, he broadcast to his fleet. Open fire on the unknown vessel. Target engines and weapons systems. Show these newcomers that the Kreth do not bow. 6 raider ships turned their weapons toward the Harbinger and fired everything they had. Plasma cannons. Kinetic projectiles. Missiles. Torpedoes. A wall of destructive force raced across the void toward the human warship. The weapons hit. The Harbinger did not slow down. Thrax watched his screens with growing horror. Direct hits. Perfect accuracy. Impacts that should have torn through any hull, melted any armor, destroyed any ship. The human vessel simply absorbed them. Its armor plating showed no damage. Its shields, if it even had shields, remained at full power. It was like throwing stones at a mountain. Then the Harbinger returned fire. The first railgun round traveled at 40% of light speed. It struck Thrax's lead escort vessel amidships and passed completely through it. The ship did not explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next, it was a cloud of superheated vapor expanding into space. The second and third rounds followed within 2 seconds. 2 more ships died. 400 Kreth warriors vanished between one heartbeat and the next. Thrax watched his fleet being erased. He had commanded these ships for 15 years. He had fought dozens of battles. He had never lost. Plasma lances fired next. Beams of energy so intense that they made stars look dim carved through the remaining escort vessels. Metal vaporized. Hulls collapsed. Life support systems failed instantly. There was no time to evacuate. No time to surrender. No time for anything except death. In 93 seconds, 6 ships were gone. Only Thrax's command vessel remained. He sat frozen in his chair, unable to move, unable to think. Around him, his crew was screaming, crying, praying to gods they had not believed in since childhood. The human ship moved closer. It was not fast. It did not need to be. Its weapons had already demonstrated that distance meant nothing. Its targeting systems could track a single Kreth warrior from 1,000 kilometers away and put a round through his eye. You have 30 seconds, Captain Reyes broadcast. Surrender or die. Thrax's hand moved without conscious thought. He deactivated his weapons. He powered down his shields. He opened all external hatches. I surrender, he said. His voice cracked. Please, I surrender. The boarding pods launched from the Harbinger. They crossed the gap between ships in seconds, magnetic clamps sealing against the raider's hull. Airlocks cycled. Doorways opened. Thrax saw humans for the first time. They were smaller than Kreth. Their skin was soft. They had no claws, no armored hide, no natural weapons. By every measure they should have been prey. But they moved like predators. Their eyes tracked every potential threat. Their weapons, held in steady hands, never wavered. They communicated in short, clipped phrases, coordinating with perfect efficiency. And they were not afraid. The lead human stepped forward. She was tall for her species, with dark hair and a scar on her jaw. Her armor was scratched and dented from years of use. Her rifle was pointed at Thrax's chest. I am Captain Diana Reyes. Your prisoners. Where are they? Medical bay, Thrax managed. Deck 7. They are unharmed. The captain nodded to her team. Half of them moved toward the interior of the ship. The other half kept their weapons trained on the Kreth crew. In the medical bay, Dr. Mira Voss heard footsteps approaching. Heavy, confident footsteps. She pressed herself against the wall, trying to shield the children behind her. The door opened. A human soldier stepped through. Behind the visor of her helmet, Mira could see eyes that were brown and warm. The soldier lowered her weapon immediately when she saw the frightened civilians. "It's okay," she said. Her voice was gentle despite the combat gear. "I am Sergeant Chin of the United Earth ship Harbinger. We received your distress call. We are here to help." Mira stared at the alien creature standing before her. This being had just destroyed an entire pirate fleet. Her ship had firepower that could crack worlds. Her species came from a death world so dangerous that the entire galaxy had quarantined it. And she had come to rescue strangers she had never met. "Oh," Mira whispered. "How did you know we needed help?" Sergeant Chin smiled. It was a strange expression on such an alien face, but somehow it conveyed warmth. "Someone sent a distress call. We answered. That's what we do." The evacuation took 3 hours. Human medics treated the wounded Valori with surprising gentleness. Human engineers stabilized the damaged ships. Human soldiers secured the surviving Kreth raiders and prepared them for transport to face justice under Galactic Council law. Captain Reyes walked through the Sanctuary of Dawn, surveying the damage. She found Dr. Mira Voss sitting alone in what had been her office, staring at nothing. "You are the senior medical officer?" Reyes asked. "Yes." Mira looked up at the human. "I do not understand. Your species. You are from a death world. You evolved as predators. Why would you risk your lives for us?" Reyes considered the question. She had asked herself the same thing many times over her career. The answer she had realized was simple. Because you needed help. Because you could not help yourselves. Because someone had to answer the call. Mira felt tears running down her face. The galaxy had told her species that humans were monsters. Dangerous. Violent. Something to be feared and avoided at all costs. The galaxy had been wrong. News of the rescue spread across known space at the speed of quantum communication. The footage from the Harbinger's external cameras showing the destruction of the pirate fleet in under 2 minutes was watched by billions. The testimony of the rescued Valori, describing human medics treating their wounds and human soldiers protecting them with quiet professionalism, reached every world in the Council. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy. Not with diplomacy or trade agreements or cultural exchange. With overwhelming firepower deployed in defense of complete strangers. The Valori hegemony requested formal diplomatic relations within a week. 17 other species followed within a month. The Galactic Council, after 300 years of ignoring the quarantine zone around Sol, sent an official invitation for humanity to join their assembly. Captain Diana Reyes received a medal for her actions. She put it in a drawer and went back to work. There were always more distress calls. There was always someone who needed help. And humanity, the death world species that the galaxy had feared for so long, would always answer. On Earth, a new monument was constructed in the plaza outside the United Space Command headquarters. It depicted a human hand reaching down toward a smaller, alien hand reaching up. The inscription was simple. "We heard you. We came. We will always come." The galaxy had learned something important about the species called humanity. They were predators, yes. They were violent when necessary. They came from a world that killed most things that lived on it. But they protected those who could not protect themselves. And that made all the difference. The end.